All right, greetings from the Dark Continent, Conscious Caracal here, or Adams Van Sale. And tonight we're going to be shining a light not on the goings on down south, but more on just some general talking points and ideas surrounding what you can do to improve your surroundings and also find some meaning and purpose and enjoyment in a time that's to many very troubling, but at the same time very interesting. So, just a reminder, this is my new microphone. So, if I'm a little bit too soft or loud, just let me know and I can adjust it just to make sure. And thank you very much for tuning in. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I see my good friend, the Prudentialist, is already in chat. He's going to be listening. He says, I'll be listening to this while I work. Looking forward to this. Well, thank you very much, Prude, for tuning in. I think tonight's going to be an excellent conversation because I'm going to be talking about something I think in my own personal life that's made a big difference. Few changes in your perspective and how you approach things and can make all the difference. So just before we continue, just going to make sure this video feed seems to be going great. All right. So I think I can start off maybe with let's start off with a solid foundation and then we can go forward into the topic. So I know a lot of people might be a little confused sometimes when they read the passage in the Bible about God creating man in his image. Now, I don't think the majority of Christians view this as God is just some human form or figure sitting in the clouds, as many people like to mock Christianity for. But there's a deeper thing here. And the thing about God creating man in his own image means, well, being made in the image of God means that humans are the creature through whom God's plans and purposes can be made known and actualized. So humans in this way can be co-creators with God. So through humanity, God's plans and purposes can be actualized and made known. And that's what it means, very briefly, to be made in the image of God, is to be able to create, to be co-creators and to be builders. And that's one of the reasons why I'm starting with this, is the fact that this relates directly to the topic for tonight's discussion: building, planting, writing, creating. And that's something that I've had a lot of conversations in private with many of my friends, but it's something that I really wanted to do an episode on, because I think maybe I can use my own testimony to inspire some of you to try some of these suggestions. So before I go on, let me just see here who's in the chat. RT Pandey says, good evening. Good evening. Christian says, hi Rooikat en mense. Goeienaand Christian, lekker om jou hier so te sien. Be Smart says, hey everybody. Hey, Be Smart. En dan Annie sê, hi Arends and everybody. Hello Annie, ek hoop het gaan goed. All right. So let's get into tonight's discussion. Now, what actually inspired me to do tonight's discussion is a little project that me and my girlfriend did last weekend, or the weekend that passed now. And that is, we actually planted a vegetable garden. So we don't really own a massive backyard, but we had this little space at the back of our house where it's basically just bricks on the ground. So you can't really plant any flowers or plants there, even though me and my girlfriend really like gardening. So what we did was, we bought a bunch of what would you call it? Washing tubs, or not washing, laundry baskets, but without holes. And I drilled some drainage holes into the bottom, about three of these big containers, plastic containers, because we don't have the money to really buy like fancy planters and stuff. So we wanted to do it economically. So we bought these three. Also bought some cheap cement pots. And then also we had this metal basket lying around, so I just lined it with black garbage bags and poked some drainage holes in the bottom and filled that with some planting soil as well. So it was off to a good start, and then we started planting. We planted not just things that are easy to grow, things that what we focused on was things that we use. So we planted some potatoes, onions, spring onions, chives. We also planted some celery. We planted some chilies, but that's mostly for me because she really can't eat chilies. Some bird's eye chilies I want to make a sauce from. And we also planted some bell peppers, and then a bunch of little herbs that I can't remember all the names of. So specifically oregano that I want to dry as well. And it was a very fun experience. It was a nice bonding experience. It was very nice just working with the soil, doing something productive like that. It's very rewarding afterwards. It's hard work. It's not just something that you can do within an hour. It's going to take some of your time, but it was very rewarding and it was something that felt right. Now, Dirk Herman of Solidariteit always has this great quote about Afrikaners. Now, it only works in Afrikaans, unfortunately. So in Afrikaans, he says, well, maybe I'll loosely translate it and also explain the part that's maybe only really applicable to the Afrikaans translation. So he says, Afrikaners all have a connection to the farm or farming, whether they are farmers themselves or know someone that lives on a farm or have family members that farm or grew up in a farming community or live in a farming community. They all have that almost like a disproportionate connection to farming. And I mean, this is why we refer to ourselves as the Boers, which literally translates to farmers. And then he says, but every Afrikaner, even we don't have our backyard in Afrikaans translates to agterplaas, which means back farm. So every Afrikaner, even though he doesn't have a farm, he has a back farm, like a agterplaas, which I think is a perfect example of that. So when it comes to these types of activities like planting vegetables, growing plants and gardening, there is a little bit of a ancestral memory that you do feel sparked if you're an Afrikaner and doing it. But I don't think it's something that's strictly exclusive to Afrikaners. Absolutely not. I think anyone, all our ancestors were farmers and worked with their hands in the soil, cultivated a lot of their own produce. And I think doing something like that really brings out that just the joy of planting and being self-sufficient, even if it's just in a small way. It's what you're actually doing is you're growing the right mindset. You're cultivating the right mindset. That's a better word. So Sideliner Opinion says, Vini plant nie, pluk nie. So in English, that translates to who doesn't plant, doesn't reap. So doesn't get anything. Who doesn't sow, doesn't reap, I think is a better translation. So I'm not just here to talk about vegetable farming, even though I do think it's a good example of the types of activities that I want to promote with this stream. I do think, and this is a point that I made, I was on the Worldview podcast a while back, I think 2 weeks ago. And I made the point there that there was this story in America about some statue in New York City that was built for like to honor African culture or something like that. I can't remember exactly the story, but it's this Africa style statue. It's very rare. It looks like it fits into any African country. It doesn't really. It stands out a little bit in America, but a lot of conservatives were very bothered by this. So they all went to Twitter and to social media to really voice their concerns and their frustration with this is not American. What is this doing? It is not honoring anything from our heritage. And my more hot take response to that is instead of attacking other people's statues, ask yourself the question, how many statues have you recently erected? How many new monuments have you built? Even small, you don't have to build the Voortrekker monument. You don't have to build the massive monuments. You just need to build small things. Maybe get together and fund building a statue for a major hero within the movement on the right or in conservatism. But we don't see that happening, or at least I don't see that happening. If anyone can enlighten me on recently anything like that being done, that would be excellent. But that's my point, is the fact that we're not building. We're almost in that leftist mindset of breaking down, or leftist and to a large extent liberal mindset as well, of like breaking down barriers, attacking, being in an attack mode rather than a building mode, rather than building something that will last into the future, well into the future. So that was why I was very glad when Solidariteit's technical college was unveiled, that when I saw that there was a statue, or like a statue or a little monument in the middle of the courtyard. They took a huge boulder that was dug out while they were digging the foundation of the building, and they put that boulder in the middle, and they put a brass sculpture on it of a hand and chisel. because it's a trade. It's a trade technical college. And I thought that was very beautiful because we need to build statues, we need to build sculptures, we need to make our environment beautiful, we need to honor the past through these types of creations. And the thing about I was just distracted here by a comment here by Daniel Watts, who says, "Never thought about the question in that way you frame it in. If I ever run into you in Pretoria, a beer is on me, mate." Daniel Watts, I would definitely have a beer with you. I don't know how to contact you. You can send me an email. Send me an email to ernst.vanzyl@afriforum.co.za. We can make a plan. Before I continue, I just want to make a few comments known here. So Sideliner Opinion says humans have become completely dependent on corporates to do everything for them. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that people think, oh, well, we don't, how are we going to get the money to build monuments or whatever? You can do something very simple. You can plant a tree. A tree is a living monument. So this is something that I'm very fortunate to have done with my father when I was younger, is that we planted all these trees around my hometown when I was very little, and now they're massive trees. And whenever I drive through my hometown again, when I go visit, I can see these massive trees everywhere that me and my dad planted, and it's a living monument. And one day I'll be excuse me, one day I will be able to show my children those trees and say, your grandfather and I planted those trees. So you don't have to, I'm not saying you should go bold like a pyramid. I'm saying you should plant and build things that will last, things that leave a legacy, even if it's just planting a tree, even if it's just getting together to fund a little monument or little statue or something that you want to beautify your community with. I think that's very important. Let's see here. Daniel Watts has another comment. He says, "Hey man, thank you for your stuff. As a rootless wandering Anglo, your discussions on immigration have given me a lot to think about in conjunction with the madness that has overtaken the Anglosphere." Well, Daniel, I'm very glad that my content has given you this type of inspiration. It's very flattering to hear. And yeah, it is a very pertinent topic, that, and I'm glad to see more people talking about it, and I'm very glad that people enjoyed that content that I made. I got a very good feedback from it. So, but thank you very much for that comment as well. Groen Hondkat says, blame postmodernism that seeped into every aspect of life. Yes, to a certain extent, for the horrific types of architecture, brutalism that we're seeing, ugly statues, ugly monuments, everything is just made specifically to demoralize you, not quite literally almost. But that's the thing, to get back to that earlier point. Yes, we can point out that people are building ugly things and making our surroundings ugly, but therefore the reaction shouldn't be just to complain about that. The reaction should be to build our own beautiful things. The counter should be building. The counter shouldn't be just to break down. I mean, then we're pretty much just operating within a leftist frame anyway, and that shows how far the zeitgeist has shifted. We need to start building as well. Counter with beauty, not with destruction. So our focus shouldn't be just to point out how ugly everything is. Our focus should be, how can we beautify our communities? What can we do? And like I said, it's not like you're going to have to build the pyramids. Just plant trees, make sure the rivers in your community are clean, make sure your street is clean, make sure your garden is in a good state. If you're living in an old house, specifically in South Africa, where there's a lot of old, beautiful houses that are unfortunately going a bit to waste. If you live in an old house that's over 100 years old, and if it's possible, maybe save up a little bit of money to slowly start restoring it to its original state. Doesn't have to be done within a year. It can be a long-term project, but I think that's also something very noble to do, is to preserve these buildings, and doing your little part to do that. Louis Nel sê, lekker snor meneer. Dankie Louis. Is Movember. So yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, that's the thing. That's my message that I'm trying to get out there, is the fact that, yes, it's not a fruitless endeavor to criticize the ugliness that we see out there, and the ugly architecture, the horrid statues, the ugly environment that's being deliberately, in many cases, created. we also need to pair that, because it's easy to criticize and point it out. The hard part is then building beautiful things to counter that, almost as a curse in the direction of the ugliness, almost as a daring challenge, a middle finger in the way, in the direction of a disrespectful action towards the ugliness out there. And the architects of ugliness is to build beautiful things, make things that are falling apart beautiful again, to restore, to rejuvenate. And that's what you can easily do with small little actions. And I mean, that's why I'm very glad to see with a lot of what AfriForum is doing as well, cleaning up rivers, cleaning up communities, cleaning up graveyards that are not being taken care of, maintaining monuments, Afrikaner monuments that are also falling apart. AfriForum is doing a major job, specifically with the youth, to clean up these heritage sites. And I mean, unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do it all, but there is something being done, and I'm very proud of that. And by that's something that communities can come together to do. If there's like a park in the middle of your neighborhood, I've saw many neighborhoods in Pretoria have already gotten together to beautify their parks in their little communities. They also take a little bit of responsibility, even though it isn't their responsibility to do it. They still do it because there is an unspoken responsibility to do it. And that's a beautiful thing to see. It's very encouraging. It's a major white pill. And I think also what people need to keep in mind when you're embarking on these types of projects, it doesn't always. I've been talking about what you can do in your community in the public sphere, but in the private sphere, you can also do a lot of creating and building, leaving a legacy. So when it comes to creating in the private sphere, that's like writing. And I do it in my own personal capacity through my content creation on YouTube, writing opinion pieces, writing fiction as well that I haven't made public yet. Maybe one day, writing poetry, writing anything that I think is valuable. And even though I don't think I'm the best, I don't think I'm excellent by any margin, I still do it. I want to improve and I want to create something. It's healthy psychologically, but it's also healthy societally. It's healthy communally, creating art and creating literature. That's what the Afrikaners' ancestors did with the Taalbeweging and with developing Afrikaans to the state that it is today, was through writing, creating. Figures like MP van Wyk Louw, well, he was even later. There were bigger figures even before him. C.A. Langenhoven. There's a massive list of all these Afrikaners that just started writing, creating. And those books are still around today, and they are still cultural inspiration for the youth and people today within the Afrikaner community. And I know other nations and other peoples have that as well. So that's what you need to do today. Is if God gave you a talent to write, if God gave you a talent to paint, if God gave you a talent to make beautiful wooden furniture or sculptures, if God gave you a talent to sculpt with clay, you need to use that talent. You need to, even if you're not the best, even if you're not going to be able to make a living out of it, I would really highly suggest you make a little bit of time for it just to create. Because like I started the whole stream with, that idea of being made in the image of God. You are You're a co-creator. God gave you that ability to create, to take raw materials and create something beautiful from it. And I think if you are given those talents, you should use them. You shouldn't just bury them away. You should make good with what you were given, because all of us have a talent to create something. My talent is writing, and I'm doing my best to improve, not only because of how healthy it is for me and I think the even small little difference it makes, maybe also just because I'm using the talent that God gave me. And I know many of you listening have talents that far surpass mine in any capacity. There are some of you listening definitely that write much better than me, that are amazing painters, that are sculptors, that are gardeners, that are into botany. I know a lot of you that are listening have these creative talents, even if it's not your main talent. And I would highly recommend that you start flexing those creative muscles again, even if it's just in private. You don't have to show off to the world. But show it to your friends, show it to your family members. It's very healthy. It's been very healthy for me, and that's the type of advice that I wanted to give with this stream. And creating content is also a healthy way of using those talents. You don't even have to be the best orator in the world. You don't have to have like a radio voice or a razor sharp wit or have read all the books that are in the world. You don't even have to be an expert on a topic. Just if you're talking about something that you're passionate about, and you're talking about something that you have an interest in, sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge, even like I said, it doesn't have to be a dam of knowledge. It can just be a little well or a little spring of knowledge. Maybe someone out there can use it. Maybe someone out there can be inspired by it. And this is something that I would encourage people to do. Before I continue, there's some comments here in the chat. Sideliner Opinion says, primitive instincts of survival, building, planting, and improvement are too valuable to discard. We must not become mere corporate consumers. Absolutely, absolutely. That's precisely the type of message that I want to amplify. The Prudentialist says, as much as we get lost in the world of our screens, too many wish to stay there and not look outside their window. Absolutely. That's also 100% correct. I mean, a lot of us spend a metric shit ton of time on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on forums, on whatever. And some of that, I mean, it's not all folly. It's not all wasting time. But a lot of that time can be used in a better way, in a more creative way to create. Don't just be a consumer. Create things that are going to maybe have an impact on people, or even just have an impact on yourself. And I think that is exactly what the Prudentialist is saying here. Go outside, plant a tree. Go outside and make sure your garden is neat. Go outside and maybe get together with your community to clean up a park or clean up a river, or join a community organization that does that type of thing, or get together with your friends that care about building monuments and erecting statues, and maybe crowdfund just a tiny little monument or something that you can build somewhere or place somewhere that will beautify that community, something that reveres the past, maybe something that's honoring a great figure. It doesn't even have to be that far back in the past. I've seen people do it, and it really makes a big difference. Sideline Opinion says, creating lasting beauty is a lost art in the age of consumerism. Yes. We all just consume, we don't create. And that's my whole message with this stream, is that people need to start creating, even a little. Groenhondkat says, use your talents in your domain to crush the clown. I'm assuming you're a listener of Mr. Scott Tongay, hey? But absolutely, keep crushing those clowns. Arti Pandey says, great perspective. Today's society has us believing that we should focus on the things that have utility, which is in opposition to creative expression, as you have described it. Yes. I mean, there are many things that you can create that have utility, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but we can't be just utilitarians when it comes to creating. Some things like beauty, in today's society, many people don't see the utility of it. They say beauty can be anything. You can't eat beauty, or would be like the snarky type of remark that you'd get from like a leftist. But beauty is something real. It's something physical. It's something that we all recognize, and creating beautiful things does indeed have a utility. It's just more abstract and sacred, and sometimes something that you can't really put into words. Annie makes a good point. She says, don't forget music. Yes, that's another great example. I've mentioned planting, building, I've mentioned writing, but music as well. If you are music, I'm not musically talented. I can't play any instrument. But there's a lot of people out there that can. And I think a lot of people listening here can play instruments. I'm guaranteed of that, I think. And that's another way that you can create, is to create music. And then what you can do is, once you've not perfected is the wrong word. Once you've gotten to a point where you have a little well of confidence in what you've created musically, you need to start sharing it, start uploading it to YouTube, start uploading it to Spotify or SoundCloud or anywhere where other people can share in your creation. Because that's another important aspect of human relations. Die mens is 'n tropdier. Humans are a herd animal. A lot of our happiness and a lot of our meaning comes from not just creating, but sharing what we've created with those around us. And that's something that I take a lot of pleasure in when I write something and I share it, and I get nice feedback for it. Not just people saying this is great, also people saying you could have improved, like constructive criticism. That's also a great response. That's a nice a nice way to get that type of encouragement. So absolutely, yes, I need making music, definitely, but also that actually leads me to that point of it's also great to share your creations. And don't make that a mistake that many creators and artists of the past made, where they created something but they didn't share it because they didn't think it was perfect. Some of the best creations of all time have imperfections. Nothing really is perfect. It's Don't wait until perfection before you share your creations. I think you can start sharing at a very early stage. I mean, it's for me, it's very simple or very straightforward and a no-brainer. I see here Roman Kabanak of the Morning Shot is here. Goeienaand, meneer. Baie lekker om te sien jy het ingeskakel. Thank you very much. Also a great channel creating daily content on news happenings in South Africa, but I think my audience is already well acquainted with Mr. Kabanak's content. If you are not, go check out Morning Shot. If you're interested in South African news and analysis, that's the place to go. Definitely highly recommend. He has my seal of approval. So yeah. Let's see. Hardy Dave. Hardy Dave says the summer rains are beautiful. The air is cool. Crickets are a chorus. I like that it's called the universe. Singing is a good vibe and it's good for health. Well, I would say singing falls under music. But yeah, if we're blessed with a singing voice, maybe go dig out some classic cultural songs, traditional songs, and do them justice with your beautiful voice that God gave you. I think that's another way that you can create something that really has an impact. And that actually leads me to the point that I wanted to discuss as well. So Anthony Fantano, the Melon, made a tweet some while back where he says the right wing or conservatives can't create. All creative endeavors and art come from the left. Now, I'm not going to go into why that's absolute bovine feces. I think you can for yourself now, but there is an interesting point there that I wanted to discuss, and that is the fact that the right has abandoned the arts to a large extent in modernity. We don't have the amount of writers and artists and musically writing, painting as the left. That's definitely a fact in modern times, and that's something that needs to change because through art and through writing, you actually spread your values and ideas as well in a subtle way. That's what leftists don't get. Many of these things like Star Wars and all these corporate ideology shilling content or fiction, they always put the message first and then the story, just the story is a little bit of a spice there, but the main thing is always the message that they want to get out, and it creates this soulless crap. But you can write excellent fiction that conveys values without it destroying the story. So there was this quote that I shared earlier today from Albert Camus. I just want to make sure that I get it right, I don't butcher it. So Albert Camus said, fiction is the lie through which we tell the truth. And that's absolutely true. A great writer like Impie van Wyk Louw in South Africa, Afrikaner philosopher, wrote amazing fiction. And through that fiction, he actually, within the fiction, interwoven into it, were his values and his worldviews as well. But it never hit you over the head. It never punched you in the nose. but it's there, and you just need to think about it a little bit, about what you're reading, and then you get it, and that just elevates whatever he wrote to the next level. So that's why when I write, I'm writing some short stories based on South Africa, and that's what I'm trying to do there. Exactly that. The message isn't the main thing. You write a story with real characters. You base your characters. Dostoevsky is very good at this. You write very realistic characters, and then your values and your ideas kind of naturally come to the fore as they interact with each other. Peter in Celia says, this is exactly what we do in Urania every day, and it feels so right. Well, Peter and Celia, ek was nou, well, maybe I should say it in English. Because you're from Urania, I wanted to switch immediately to Afrikaans, but the message I want everyone to hear, so I'll stick to English for this one. I've been to Urania many times, and that's definitely the Urania mindset and philosophy is building, not just breaking down and attacking, but rather building something beautiful. And I mean, Urania has many beautiful sites, many beautiful gardens, even in the dry desert where it's located. I can really say that you're absolutely right. This man is not lying when he says this is what they do every day in Urania, because it's a very, I can see when I visit that community that it's a very strong aspect of their philosophy. Hardy Dave says, Joseph Campbell has some great stuff on storytelling and the hero's journey at Arends. This kind of talk needs to happen at youth workshops. Yeah, well, I'm not familiar with Joseph Campbell, but if anyone is interested, you can just check that out. I trust that it's some good content. Sideliner Opinion says, and one of the great tasks of all true education, social reform, and religion is to present and make possible those aims in life which are worth serving. You put it in quotation marks, so I'm quite interested in who said that, but yeah. So yeah, anyway, to get back on track. When it comes to the right and conservatives creating, I think there's a big void that needs to be filled. Writing specifically, writing fiction. We can't just write nonfiction and reports and analysis pieces. I mean, those are important. I'm not saying we should throw them away. But at the moment, that's all we're focusing on, really, on the right. And what conservatives are focusing on. I think we need to start focusing on writing fiction as well. Painting as well. Your ideas and values can, in a very subtle way, come to the fore through your art that you paint. I've looked at many paintings where I can pick up on little messages, little gems from the past within paintings. I think that's also very important. So if you're blessed with the talent to paint, I would recommend you start painting. Paint the things you love. Paint the things that inspire you. Paint the scenes that leave a lasting impression in your mind. And I mean, that's definitely something that I'm seeing slowly start happening on the right, but I'd like to see more of it. I know there's this guy on Twitter, Geo, who does beautiful paintings, and I'd like to see more of that. But writing as well, writing fiction. I think the horror genre is wide open for the conservative writers or more post-liberal writers. I mean, our world is filled with so much unimaginable horror, man-made horror, that I think it's ripe for the picking. I think the horror genre really is a place where conservative and right-wing writers can start creating and writing fiction within. And through those stories, through identifying what evokes horror, what causes horror, you're making a statement, but you're not doing it in a club way like many leftists, hitting your readership over the head with it. You're doing it in a very subtle way. It's like that. It's a bit of a little it's a bit of a Reddit quote, but it's still pretty pertinent. It's like that red letter media quote of you didn't notice it, but your brain did. There's that type of thing when you're reading fiction that's expertly written by someone that has solid values and that interweaves them into their art. So yeah, I think that's something that's very important when it comes to creating, is that we shouldn't just be writing analysis, not just writing nonfiction. We should also be writing fiction and painting and making music. Not just protest songs you could, like I said, I think a very good project, if you are musically talented, would be to take old folk songs, old traditional songs, old songs from the past, from your youth, songs that you want to preserve or songs that made an impact on you, and to do your own cover or rendition of them, and to honor them in that way, and to preserve them and pass them on into the future in that way. I think that's also a great way to use your talent in a conservative way. I see Hardy Dave says, P.S. The hero's journey is an underlying theme in most great stories, like Homer's Odyssey, Star Wars, and many more. Yes, absolutely. I'm quite aware of that. But thank you for putting it that succinctly. That's something that it's also inspiring. Sideliner, that quote. So Sideline Opinions posted this quote, and I asked where it was from, and he said it comes from the book 12 Tests of Character, written by H.E. Fosdick in 1923. All right, thank you. So I wrote a piece a while back for Wipinor about origin myths. I wrote a piece about, and I'm gonna bear with me, it's gonna tie back to the topic that we're talking about. I wrote this piece about origin myths, and how Afrikaners and the West are struggling with origin myth crises. Now, to not get, I'm going to publish a video next week, or maybe late this week or early next week, on exactly that topic. So I'm not going to get too heavily into that. You can just stick around for that on my channel. If you're subscribed, you'll know when it drops. But in short, your origin myths are the types of myths that inspire a civilization or culture or people, the myths that help them orientate themselves in the world. And a lot of these origin myths in the past used to be focused on building, striving, aspiring, creating, birth, growth, all these positive values. And now today they've been replaced by origin myths that are built on, well, not built, but that are based and drenched in themes like oppression, injustice, death, suffering. And that's where a lot of the cultural issues today in the West and among Afrikaners are coming from. So, but like I said, I don't want to get too derailed. That episode or that video on origin myths is going to be uploaded on my channel very soon, hopefully late this week. But if I don't get to that, it will be very early next week. So if you're not subscribed, and you're interested in that, if you subscribe, you'll be notified of it. Harida is very active in the chat. Thank you very much. I do appreciate all these comments in the chat. Everyone's contributions so far have been excellent. Thank you very much. Sometimes I enjoy reading the chat more than just doing the stream itself. So Hardy Dave, I keep wanting to say Harida, says, Terry Pratchett says some cool stuff about the importance of fiction. Well, I'm going to have to check that out, because I've been thinking a lot about the importance of fiction recently. So thank you very much for all these recommendations. The chat's just being filled with good sources, and I'll definitely amplify them. So if any one of you as well have any comments in that, in Afrikaans you'd say in daai trant, in that nature, you can post them. I'll definitely give them an amplification, because I think that's excellent. Thank you. Arida says, yeah, thank you. Everyone else is quiet. Yeah, hopefully they're just listening very intently. Acid Soul says 1984. I haven't read 1984. It feels like, I think the whole cliche around it being referenced and used so many times to describe what's happening today has put me a bit off. So I definitely want to read it, but it's low down on my list. I hear it's a very good book. I won't knock that. Hardy Dave says, I love the title of the stream. It makes you want to fly to Urania. Well, the title of the stream, Build, Plant, Creates, is what they're doing in Urania. So, and we had a comment from some residents from Urania earlier in the live chat. So that's also happening. But I need to get back on track, because there's some other stuff that I also wanted to discuss. So the other thing about building and creating is more larger projects like building universities, institutions, like, for example, Soltech Academia that's being built by the Solidariteit movement, which AfriForum forms part of. These things take time, and it's things that you need to do right. So I know a lot of people would argue about time's running out, we don't have a lot of time, and that's absolutely true. But it won't help we do it in haste and then the end product is flawed and breaks down within a few years and it's not built correctly. In our haste, we build the building on a foundation of sand and then it sinks with the first storm, that type of thing. So when it comes to building large scale projects, I think doing it right, building institutions specifically, you need to do it right, even if it takes longer, even if it isn't something that you can just be finished at the end of the year. So I always take a lot of inspiration from the old ancient cathedrals of Europe. Now, I mean, anyone that's had the great privilege of visiting Europe will have seen all these great, amazing, awe-inspiring cathedrals. And I mean, you can be awe-inspired just by looking at the photographs of them, but experiencing them in person is something else. And if the thing about many of those cathedrals, I think most of them, is that the architects that designed them and the first people that started building them didn't even see them before they didn't see them be completed. Many of those cathedrals, them Afrikaans accents coming through, took 500 years to build. So not even the children or the grandchildren of some of the people that designed or started building or dreamed of those cathedrals even saw their completion, but they all were building towards that end, that knowing that it's going to be worth it, even if I don't see it, even if I don't praise the Lord within its walls. It's going to be worth it because it's something I'm building for future generations. I'm building it for the people that come after me. And that's something that's that old quote, that Greek proverb of you need to plant a great civilizations grow great when men plant trees that they will never sit under. And this is, I think, when building cathedrals, building institutions, building towns like Urania, it takes time and you have to do it right, even if time is of the essence, even if the pressure is very high, even if time is running out, you still need to do it right. Because meer haas, minder spoed, as we say in Afrikaans, more haste, less speed. And yeah, so I think that's another point that I wanted to highlight, is that when you're building these large scale things, it needs to be done properly. It needs to, you need to do it right, even if time is of the essence. And he says, exactly, Aaron's listening intently. Yeah, because I said, I hope everyone listen carefully. Acid Soul says, build a nuclear power station, you'll make your money back. Well, maybe someday Urania will have a nuclear power station. Hindo says, also in the UK, castle and cathedrals. Yeah, castles are also inspiring to visit, something with the technology at the time, which are actually they're marvels. And that's why it's a bit depressing seeing the generations of today not really appreciate the feats of these creations of their forefathers. I think it was Roger Scruton, but I'm talking under correction, that lamented the fact that British youth were all traveling to the east. They were going to Buddhist temples in India and the Far East and everywhere to get mystical inspiration, to get the spiritual experience, to be awe-inspired. But he said the irony and the sad thing is their own home country and their own backyard and their own neighborhood, larger neighborhood, metaphorically speaking, or is filled with these types of awe-inspiring spiritual places, beautiful cathedrals, beautiful churches, beautiful old buildings, 300, 500 years old. And it's right under their nose, but they go to other cultures and other civilizations to get inspiration. And that's very sad. In South Africa as well, and I'm not going to knock anyone that travels. I think it's a good experience. There's a whole big world out there. But at the same time, there's also a lot of beauty in South Africa. I mean, I love driving ththrough all these little towns in the Karoo Desert and just coming upon these beautiful sandstone churches that are over 100 years old. If I was bored and had a lot of time and and I was retired, I just drive all around South Africa and create like a massive database of just all these churches, these beautiful little churches all across the country, because I've seen quite a bit of them, and it's really awe inspiring. It's not Notre Dame, but it's really nice. It's really something. And but yeah, to get back to that point, a lot of Westerners look to other cultures and civilizations for inspiration. While there's so much inspiration and awe-inspiring stuff right there in their backyard. Um, it's almost like that trek of going all around the world looking for meaning and for inspiration, only to come back and find out it was under your nose this whole time. Hindo, let's see. I've lost track. The chat's now getting alive. So Hindu asks, what is Urania's population today? It's around 2,000. Sideline Opinion says, when love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece. John Ruskin. Hardy Dave says, the architecture is beautiful. Pretoria CBD is beautiful, but the city is littered and regressing. Yes, unfortunately. The Voortrekker Monument. If you live in Pretoria, go visit the Voortrekker Monument. It is an awe-inspiring place. It's really an inspiring place, especially if you're an Afrikaner. I would highly recommend it. Take your family there for an afternoon over a weekend, or if you live or work close enough, go have your lunch there. Take your lunch with you and go sit there and just look at take it in. I highly recommend it. Hindo says, I admire the castles and cathedrals by me, including Salisbury Cathedral. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. Let's see. Jose de Salva says, beautiful church in Pella, Northern Cape. Well, I do believe you. I've seen the Northern Cape has some of the most beautiful churches I've ever seen, but they're beautiful in their humility. They're so simple. They're not flashy. They're not massive and imposing. They're just these little cute little churches built out of sandstone often. Just after the stream, go Google Karoo churches. So Karoo is Karoo, and then churches in Google Images. Go just check out some of those pictures. It's really something. So yeah, I think that's something else. Oh yeah, while I was talking about the origin myth topic, like I said, that video is going to come out there. I'm going to go into detail. But no, this is not based on anyone else's theory. I have my own little personal theory that you can also create tiny origin myths in your own capacity, in your family or in your community as well. So when your child asks you, when you point to a tree that you and your father planted, and you can tell your child, me and your grandfather planted that tree, that's also a little bit of an origin myth in a certain extent. If you're living in a house, now this was more applicable to the past generation than now, sadly, where most people or many people built their own houses or played a large role in building their houses. They could tell their children and their grandchildren, the house that you're living in right now was built by me, or was built by your grandfather, was built by your great-great-grandfather. And that's also a little origin myth. That's also an inspiration. That's also a little cultural story in a microcosm. So I think all these things that I've talked about tonight, all these things that you can create, also play that lasting role, that spiritual role of creating origin myths and creating stories that inspire the next generation and others. So yeah, that's my big thing there. I see Hardy Dave says, I love the humility of the Karoo. Well, I visited the Karoo with my father a few weeks ago. We stayed there on my great-grandfather's farm. It's not in our family anymore, but we stayed there on the farm near Beaufort Wes, and it was very nice. We walked up to the dam that my great-grandfather built. We saw there was a house there that he built as well. And it was a nice trip down memory lane, and my father could tell me all the nice memories that he had there, visiting his grandfather on the farm. A firm man, but some experiences that touched him very deeply. But yeah, there are some beautiful buildings and little towns there in the Karoo. Silana Opinion says, follow Wipinor on Twitter. It's a new arena for exchanging practical ideas for all communities. AfriForum initiative. Yes, absolutely. So Wipinor is a think tank in association with AfriForum. And let me just put the link in the chat and on the screen so that you guys can go check it out if you want to. It's a new think tank. There will be community-based ideas put on display there, reports that we've written or that were written for us. Robert Daigen wrote a report for us very recently on civil disobedience. There's an interview I did with him on my channel for those that don't know, where he talks about that report, and that report is also available on Wipinor. I just put the link there on the screen, so you can go check it out. There's going to be some great content there. I've been given the responsibility of helping create content there. My latest opinion piece is also there to be read if you want to, on Afrikaners and the West and origin myths. Sideliner, oh, thank you very much. He says hit the like button and follow if you have not done so yet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hardy Dave says, I had a breakdown near Beaufort West on the way back from Cape Town. Really, no need to complain. The stars and the people and the buildings and the mountains. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the country. It was very dry when we were there, but just a few days after we left, it had showers of rain. So that's very good. Even the succulent plants were struggling when we were there. So that shows you how dry it is there. So yeah, that's my message for this week. It's to go out and create, to use your God-given talents, to actualize God's plan and purpose, to be co-creators, to build, to plant, to create, even in your own small capacity. I'd like to see more people do it. I think that's something that's really need to be done. Before I say goodbye, there's just a message here. So Bitvice, you might remember from previous streams, are sponsoring me again, and their sponsorship is really welcome, seeing as I think they're doing excellent work. I know the guys behind it. It's not some scam or untrustworthy, dodgy guys. I know Ricky Allardyce very well, and they've been kind enough to sponsor my show again. So Bitvice, for those that don't remember from previous streams, is the only self-custody place to buy Bitcoin in South Africa. What that means is that if you buy Bitcoin from them, unlike any other exchanges, they never hold your Bitcoin for you. You have self-custody. They send it straight to you, to your own self-custody wallet, meaning that regulators can't freeze your Bitcoin and hackers can't steal it. It is the way that Satoshi Nakamoto intended Bitcoin to be used. So there's a link in the description to them if you are planning to get into crypto. Very nice guys. They'll walk you through it. They walked me through getting into crypto. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And you need to go check them out. Like I said, there's a link in the description, Bitvice. You can go check them out. Thank you very much. So guys, wait, before I say goodbye, I see a Hindo says, Conscious Caracal, do ask Colonel Chris Wyatt to write for that website. I will definitely ask him. Thank you for the suggestion, Hindo. Chris Wyatt's an excellent guy, and I know he's going to be able to write something of great value. So, guys, this brings us to the end. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really enjoyed this episode. This is a topic that I've been thinking about a lot personally. The advice that I'm giving in this episode is pretty much, I'm talking from my own personal experience and my own testimony. Creating and planting and building really is good for the soul. It's good for your mind, and it's good for your community, and it's good for your family and friends and people around you. And that's definitely something, a message that I want to get out there. So thank you very much for everyone that tuned in. If you want to help out the show, you can leave a like. If you're watching and the show, you're not watching live, you can leave a comment. I read all of them and I appreciate them very much with your thoughts in the comment section. And then also, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of conversation, this type of topic, and you can subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And then also, for those that are interested, keep an eye out. My latest video will either be dropping at the end of the week or early next week, and that's going to be on the West, Afrikaners, and origin myths. So I'm going to give some airtime to some of you saying goodbye. Thank you very much for tuning in. Yeah, thanks again to the chat. Your questions and your comments were very insightful. I enjoy them. They always enrich the show. You help create better content. Acid Soul says avos are good to plant. Absolutely. We have an avo in our backyard that we planted. It's very nice. And there was one other comment that I wanted to highlight here. Oh no, it wasn't a comment. It was just I wanted to say thanks to Hardy Dave. You definitely had the most comments in this live chat tonight, and all your comments were very valuable and insightful. Thank you specifically to those people that dropped sources and things, recommendations for what to read in the chat. I really appreciate it. Also, yeah, Endo, thank you for reminding me. I also have a Telegram channel where you can keep up to date with when I'm going live and when I write opinion pieces and anything interesting regarding the channel and my content that I create. There's the link on the screen, but you can also find a link in the description to go check out that Telegram channel. So thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come listen to this stream, and I'll see you on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your week, and then also enjoy your weekend. And remember to now start, if you haven't started already, start planting, start building, start creating. All right, cheers, guys. Have a good one, and God bless.